Hello everyone, welcome to this video lecture. So in the past lecture we have discussed about the various what is MSW, what is solid waste, municipal solid waste, what are its various kind and components and all, and about its constituents we have discussed. In this in this lecture we'll discuss about the disposal. So as I told you in the earlier class that the disposal of the municipal solid waste is a huge problem that is pertaining nowadays. Like not nowadays, it is like going on for centuries. This and especially with the advent of new technologies and new um, lifestyle standard and improved higher standard of living of the people, the management of this solid waste is becoming more and more tougher. Okay, all right. So as an when we're leaping our foot in the process of modernization and industrialization, the generation of municipal solid waste and its disposal has been a great threat to mankind. So now in today's class, we'll understand how the disposal of municipal solid waste is done. So MSW, municipal solid waste, is collected from houses, roads, streets, markets, commercial buildings, etc. by sweepers and scavengers. So these are people employed by the government or private uh, institutions called sweepers and scavengers, which carry these solid waste from each of these places like house, roads, streets, markets, commercial buildings, etc. in hand lorries. Okay, so in small lorries or hand lorries, and then they are being carried and dumped into municipal refuse chambers, from where it is being taken transported to the lorries. After the wastes are loaded in trucks from these refuse chambers, this all these waste are loaded in huge trucks, okay, municipal trucks, and it is taken for its final disposal either by dumping on low level land or for sanitary landfilling or composting or incineration. So these are some of the methods by which the disposal of solid waste is done. Once it is transported in these lorries to, then it is taken to a very far place, very uh, wide and far away place, which is low-lying area and very far from the city, so that this smell and nuisance should not come. So for that reason only, such disposal places are usually located at very large distances from the city or the area of uh, municipal solid waste. So and there it is finally disposed, okay, by some methods like sanitary landfilling, composting or incineration. We'll discuss this in detail. In India, about 90% of the municipal solid waste is disposed of by land dumping. Okay, it's 90% of the municipal solid waste is what is done. They are taken to a far place and they are dumped in a piece of land. Okay, there it is dumped straight away. It is dumped. 90% of this disposal is by land dumping, or it is also called as sanitary landfilling. Okay, about 8.5% is disposed by composting. It's another method which we will discuss again. What is composting? While remaining is disposed by methods like vermicomposting and other methods. Okay, pelletization. So majority, like for example, in rural areas, what happens is in rural areas, all the municipal solid waste that is being taken from the rural areas, it is straight away dumped. The sanitary landfilling. Sanitary landfilling is the only mode of disposal. But in case of your urban areas, where more and more, see in why this distinction is being done. Rural areas, you have the kind of solid waste that is being produced is the only the organic food waste. Okay, mainly the organic food waste, and it's not related to other highly standardized things. Now, when you move, if you move to the city, if you move to the urban areas, more and more commercial things are being used, like plastics, more plastic bags. Like village people, rural areas would not use that much of plastic bags as a urban city person will use it. So consumption of high technology, high gadget kind of things, electronic waste and all other things which are not organic, okay, which are inorganic waste. Uh, so such a majority of such wastes are being produced in the urban areas. So there you cannot simply dump all the wastes into the landfill. Then for that cases, like in the United States, the most of the municipal solid waste is done by pyrolysis or incineration. Incineration is the burning, and somewhere it is pulverized or shredding. There are number of techniques that are being used in today's day and age. This is the old, and the sanitary landfilling is the old and traditional method of sewage disposal, which was used like a century ago or many decades ago. Nowadays, you cannot only restrict the disposal mode to only this thing, this sanitary landfill. So other methods has also be used depending on the kind of refuse or garbage or municipal sewage that is being produced. Okay, so that plays a very important factor. Now we'll discuss what are the methods of disposal in detail. So first method is your sanitary landfill. The majority of the uh, your municipal solid waste is being done by this method. So in this method of refuse disposal, your MSW solid waste is carried and dumped into the low-lying area. Okay, under an engineered operation designed and operated in an environmentally sound manner, so as to not cause any public nuisance or hazard to public health or safety. So in this method, the refuse is dumped and compacted in layers of about 0.5-meter thickness. And after days work, when the depth of filling goes about to 1.5 meter, it is covered by good earth of about 15 centimeter thickness. So let us get into this thing. What happens is, see, in this figure you can see this is the initial, this is the ground, okay, where the landfill is being taken. So now this entire land is divided into number of cells. So these are cells, okay, compartment you can say, or cell. Now in each cell, all these solid waste are being dumped. Okay, after it is being dumped, okay, then it is filled with good earth or soil, and then each of this cell being filled horizontally, like there are two cells. So this will go on. This is just a section of the landfill, maybe the frontal section or the cross section you can say. In the same way you can have a longitudinal section also. So each of these cells will be filled with the solid waste and then filled with earth, and it is compacted. So the thickness of this good earth will be around 0.5 to 0.3 meter, 0.15 to 0.3 meter. Okay, here it is 0.15 meter. Then what happens is, and this width is variable, okay, so the depth of this cell will be 1.5 meter. So this completes one lift. So what happens is, you fill this cell with solid waste, you fill this cell again with solid waste, you cover this with earth of around 0.15 meter or 150 centimeter. Okay, now these two cells are taken for this section, and then you compact it. You can compact it by trucks, bulldozers, rollers, and anything. Once it is compacted, this depth will be much more. Okay, but you should start compacting it, and you should be compacting it until it reaches a depth of around 1.5 meter. So this cell height is always 1.5 meter, and above this it is 0.15 meter. Similarly, like this, you can, in this layer, in this height of 1.5 meter, number of cells will be filled like this. Now once it is filled, and once this layer of earth is being compacted, again the next cell is ready. Okay, next cell again you fill it 1.5 meter, more than 1.5 meter, again you fill it, and then again you put the good earth, and then you compact it. So finally, final fill will be 0.56 meter of earth cover. Okay, now this is the terrace. Now this is also 0.65 meter. The final thing will be 0.56 meter. Intermediate good earth width of the good earth uh, filling will be your 0.15 meter. Now what happens is, in this thing, These are actually nothing but vents. So from this, since this process will undergo decomposition, aerobic decomposition will take place, due to which the gases will be formed, and these gases are allowed to escape through these vents. So you have these gas collector pipes and vents through which this, now since mostly these are organic substances, because these are organic substances, and because of aerobic decomposition, gases like methane and other gases, okay, some nitrogen oxide gases which have higher calorific value, so these gases can be collected. So you can see by the disposal of the sewage and of the garbage or the municipal solid waste can also indirectly serve another purpose of providing gases of higher calorific value. These gases will be required for burning fuels, as a fuel for burning any substance. Okay, so this is one important. So this is basically a brief outline of how the sanitary landfilling is done. So this is the most commonly adopted method of sewage disposal. What happens here is, another thing that I need to tell here is that this method is actually uh, the landfilling operation is essentially a biological method of waste treatment, since the waste is stabilized by aerobic as well as anaerobic bacterial process. So this process will take place in two stages. First stage will be aerobic decomposition. The second stage will be followed by anaerobic decomposition. So during the first phase of operation, the aerobic bacteria and fungi which are dominant, it will deplete the available oxygen to affect oxidation of organic matter. As a result of aerobic oxidation, the temperature in the field will increase. Okay. Now in the second phase, anaerobic and facultative bacteria develop to decompose the organic matter, and hydrogen and carbon dioxide gases are evolved through the acidogenic activity. Again, there is a third phase also, third and fourth phase also. So in the third phase, the methagenic bacteria develop to cause evolution of methane gas. In the fourth phase of decomposition, the methagenic activity gets stabilized. In the fifth stage, the methagenic activity subsidize, representing depletion of organic matter. Okay. Now the system, it has to again aerobic condition. So these are basically 5 stages you'll have for doing this disposal. Okay. Now the refuse is managed landfills. In managed landfills may usually get stabilized. Okay, generally within a period of 2 to 4 months, and settle down by 20 to 40% of its original height. You are making this cell up to 1.5 meter. Now after 2 or 3 months, after all this decomposition in all the 5 stages, methanogenic activity, aerobic decomposition, anaerobic decomposition, all these stages, its final height will, suppose it is 1.5 meter, to reduce down to say 20% or 30 to 40%. 20 to 40%, its height will reduce. Means if its original height of the cell was 1.5 meters, so after all this decomposition, this height will reduce to 40% of 1.5 meter. That is 0.6 meter. It will reduce down, so it will come down to 0.9 meter or 1 meter. Okay, straight away. This is how this occurs. So this goes on for days and months. Now, some of the advantages of this method is most simple and economical. No costly plant or equipment is required in this method. Another advantage is the separation of different kind of refuse is not required. In some other methods, when we study, it is seen that the separation of this refuse of the municipal solid waste, refuse and garbage, it is very critical thing. Here, it does not require any such operation of separation of the refuse. Okay. Third advantage is there are no residues or byproduct left evolved in this method, and hence no further disposal is required. This entire method gets stabilized within 2 to 4 months, and there is no byproducts. See, if had there been some byproducts, but then again there would have been another problem of disposal for these byproducts, which is not the case here, clearly. Now, low-lying waterlogged areas and old quarry pits can be easily reclaimed to put to use. Now, some waterlogged areas which are low-lying and which have not been used for years and decades, those places can be put to use for such operations. So, the another disadvantage is Low-lying depressions or dumping site may not always be available, and this may ultimately become scarce or unavailable in future. So this is, though this is a disadvantage, but this is something that is inevitable. You cannot avoid this thing. If you are planning for sanitary landfill, this disadvantage will come along with it. Okay. So second thing is there is continuous evaluation of foul gases near the field site, especially during the times the refuse is being dumped. So these gases, foul smell will come. So that is, this is nothing that you can do about it. Now gas production and leachate. These are some of the important byproducts. Leachate is the chemical that is coming if rainfall occurs and it penetrates here. So this will react with the solid waste that is being produced. Okay. Now it will further penetrate to the groundwater table. This poisonous water, this harmful chemical of water along with the rain, which is formed due to infiltration of the rainwater with the sewage, this forms the leachate, and it may infiltrate further into the groundwater, which may cause groundwater pollution. So this is one thing that needs to be taken care of, and the production of gas that I have already explained to you. Now this is your this process is being sanitary landfill is over. Now shredding and pulverization. What happens in shredding and pulverization? Shredding is your breaking down of the, in this process, this shredding and pulverization mainly your volume reduction. Just keep remember this in mind. Volume reduction of the municipal solid waste is being done. So suppose large municipal solid waste, okay, which are taken from the house, they are not in broken state. So what happens is here basically you cut down those large solid waste into small pieces. So that is called as shredding. Okay. Now it is accomplished by physical process of shredding and pulverization. So shredding refers to the action of cutting and tearing. Cutting and tearing is called as shredding, whereas pulverization refers to the action of crushing and grinding. So suppose some solid waste, say glass. Glass is one solid waste. You cannot tear it, you cannot cut it. So it has to be crushed and grind. Similarly, also plastics, crushed, and so some materials, some solid materials, you cannot tear it or you cannot cut it. Okay. Then those are like very tough solids. It's not possible to cut even with handy equipments. So in that cases, such materials will be crushed and grind. So this entire shredding consists of the cutting and tearing, and pulverization consists of the crushing and grinding. So the main main objective of this method is to cause huge reduction of volume of municipal solid waste. So before disposal, such large volume of solid waste cannot be directly disposed into the site. Okay, so that has to be cut down, shared down, and uh, crushed or grind so as to reduce its volume to nearly 50%. So that is the objective here. So that consists of your uh, pulverization. And shading and pulverization may help in reducing the overall volume of the original municipal solid waste by as much as 40%. Okay. So it not only helps reduction in volume of MSW, but also helps in changing the physical character of waste, which becomes practically odorless and unattractive to the insects. So the pulverization of MSW is achieved in a hammer mill, where the raw solid waste is crammed with a force sufficient to crush or tear the individual components of the waste. Impact is provided by several hammers that rotate at high speeds, say up to 1500 revolutions per minute, around a central horizontal or vertical shaft. So one shaft will be rotating and it will consist of series of hammers, and those hammers will be, while the shaft is rotating, those hammers will be striking the solid waste, which will crush and grind it, and finally they will be teared and cut off. So such a hammer mill proves to be a very versatile device for size reduction of solid waste. Okay, so this was all about your uh, shading and pulverization. Now another method is your composting. So composting of the refuse, it's a biological method of decomposing solid waste. So that this decomposition can be affected either under aerobic conditions or anaerobic conditions. Okay. uh, the final end product is a manure which is called as compost or humus, which is in great demand for as a fertilizers for farmers. So basically, composting is considered to be an aerobic process because it involves piling up of refuse and its regular turn. What happens is similar to your sanitary landfilling, the refuse or the municipal solid waste that is being generated, taken and transported and then dropped there, dumped there, it is being piled in huge trenches, which are called as windrows. Windrows are trench-like conical structures where the ground is dug and into trenches and then conical shape. They're in generally they're in conical shape, and this sewage or this refuse is being dumped there. Now, what happens is under aerobic conditions, under plenty of available oxygen, this sewage is being piled and then it is turned up to down. It is being turned up, whether it is done manually or it is mechanically. This process is called as composting. Okay, and during which its decomposition is done by the your bacteria, fungi at a particular temperature. Pertaining to a particular temperature, it is decomposed by the facultative bacteria or fungi. Okay, and initially the process starts with mesophilic bacteria which oxidize the organic matter to carbon dioxide and liberate heat. Now during this process the temperature will rise. So in mesophilic is your medium range temperature. The thermophilic means the temperature sometimes rises more than 50 degrees centigrade. And all this occurs in trenches. Remember one thing. So this is not available something in free air or open air. Okay. So because of such conditions, the temperature inside such trenches will rise because of these activities, bacteriological or microbial activities, and this turning goes on. Okay. So this decomposition will continue and its temperature will rise above 45 degrees centigrade. And then it will continue the decomposition. Okay. Now the thermophilic bacteria will come here and they'll start decomposing it. Okay. It will continue up to 55 to 60 degrees. So in about 4 to 5 weeks, the biodegradable fraction gets consumed and the temperature of the compost mass starts falling down. And then the process is being continued. So in India, we have two processes. One is the Indore process and the Bangalore process. The Indore process method of composting uses manual turning of piled up refuse and this piled up mass and this content of refuse and night soil. Night soil is your human excreta or cow dung and all these things. Okay. For its decomposition under aerobic conditions. Why night soil is being used? Because they contain your microbial organisms. So for this process to function, remember one thing, for this process to function effectively, you need your microorganisms. If this bacteria, fungi and all these things, this facultative bacteria and all these microbes are not available, this process will not work. So the addition of night soil or excreta and all these things are purposely done in order to provide the environment for decomposition in presence of microbes. Okay, so in this method, the layers of vegetable waste and night soil are alternatively piled in depths of about 7.5 to 10 centimeter each, and a total depth of 1.5 meter in a trench to form a mound called windrow. So in windrow, as I told you, it's a long mound or stack of organic municipal solid waste and mixed with cattle dung and human excreta if needing disposal. It is dumped into a land of height about 1.5 to 2 meter. Okay. Now most windows are conical in cross section and about 50 meter in length. The composting waste is aerated by periodically turning the waste mix in the windrow or in the trench. The manual turning with a fish frog can be adopted at some smaller installations. While at larger plants, you do mechanical turning. So this is the basic difference. Whereas in case of Bangalore method of composting, what we do is it takes place in anaerobic conditions and this turning does not take place. So since this turning is not there, the environment that is being produced is anaerobic. So anaerobic or facultative bacteria will start decomposing and it will produce foul gases. The method is same, only the kind of uh, environment that is being given, like aerobic conditions and anaerobic conditions. Okay, so this is the basic difference. So this is how finally the compost is produced and it is being stabilized and reduced to small quantity. Now incineration and thermal pyrolysis, this is not very much used in a country like India, but in US, in the United States and Western in countries which have already moved towards huge degree of industrialization and modernization, where your municipal solid waste consists of mainly substances which are inorganic. Okay, so that kind of substances, it's not possible by simply if you dispose in a landfill, it's not possible to decompose. So for that cases, you have to let those substances be burned in a kiln, like how big bricks are burned. There also you have kilns which burns. First they'll crush. This process will be followed shredding and pulverization. Then it is being burnt in kilns under this process of thermal pyrolysis. Pyrolysis is temperature breakdown. Okay. So another important topic is here is composting, including vermicompost. Vermicomposting is composting using the case with worms. What we do is we deliberately we put some worms, which also help in composting. So that is special kind of composting. This is called as vermicomposting. It's a natural process of decomposition of biodegradable organic matter by soil bacteria. So it is done in assistance of cultured earthworms that are now produced commercially. Now these earthworms do help in quicker decomposition of organic matter. So vermicomposting is a much faster way of composting. Now in the rotary cleaning, as I told you, this thermal pyrolysis and incineration is being taken place. Now this is like a huge furnace where you produce steel, iron, blast furnace. So some kind of a furnace is also there. So here this burning operation of this sewage refuse is being taken place. That is only called as incineration and thermal pyrolysis. Last is the barging out of the sea. Now this is the final thing. Sometimes um, your uh, sewage material are such that they can be directly dumped into the sea. They need not be thrown into some land pieces or they need not be burned and all that. So depending on if the most of the sewage material is organic and the sea is local is locally available in a nearby place, there you can directly dump into the sea. So what is pyrolysis? Pyrolysis is upon heating in closed containers in oxygen-free atmosphere, most of the organic substance of solid waste can split through a combination of thermal cracking and condensation reaction into gaseous, liquid, and solid fractions. So this process is known as thermal pyrolysis or pyrolysis. So what happens when you burn these substances at such high temperature, 500 degrees centigrade, 1000 degrees centigrade, so they undergo a split first through a combination of thermal cracking and condensation occurs into gaseous, liquid, and solid fraction. So it will divide into three states: gaseous form, liquid form, and solid form. So this breakdown under such high temperature is called as thermal pyrolysis. Thermal pyrolysis is the basis of incineration because it takes place at very high temperatures in such rotary kilns. So a gas stream, a liquid fraction, and a solid fraction, all three are produced in such kiln. Now, this method, in case of barging out in the sea, this method has been used in the past to dispose of refuse by throwing it directly into the sea, carrying it at a reasonable distance from the coast. Okay, it should not be away from the, like say few kilometers away from the coast. The sea depth at disposal point should not be less than 30 meters or so. Okay, the final thing. This method finally ends the disposal of municipal solid waste. So this completes your municipal solid waste. In the next class, we'll discuss about your air pollution, noise, whatever there is air pollution, your disaster management, and that will complete the syllabus. So, thank you for listening to this lecture.